Hi guys, this is James from Isotropic, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing OxyMade, which is a plugin for Oxygen Builder that gives you a really well-defined CSS framework based on Tailwind and a ton of design sets and additional tools for the Oxygen Builder. So the first thing is the OxyMade framework, which is based on Tailwind. It offers over 600 CSS classes, and I'll show you really quickly kind of what these classes are. So this is the framework. This is the thing that I use most from OxyMade. I use this personally on all of my sites. The agency uses it. And having a well-defined CSS framework for Oxygen is really helpful. This framework is very fluid. It adapts to screen sizes automatically. And it's just a very well thought out tool. And that's probably because it's based on Tailwind. And the ideology behind Tailwind is that you'll have a CSS class for pretty much everything that you want to do. And instead of writing CSS on a per element basis, you just reuse the CSS using these different classes to apply it to elements. And because you're reusing the CSS, it becomes a very standardized system that's used throughout the website, making everything look a lot more uniform and professional. So, for example, if I wanted to make an element 100% wide, what I would do is say W full, and that would add my width as 100%. But I could also add ratios, W5 by 6, and that would make my width 83%. I could use that in connection with a height of H full, maybe H would be 100%, H screen, the height would be 100 viewport height. Same goes for overflow. If I want my overflow hidden, the class would be overflow hidden. It would apply that CSS to the page. If I wanted to add padding to all different sides of my component, maybe it's a div and I wanted to add a small amount of padding, P2. And this would use min and max in CSS to dynamically apply a set standard amount of padding based on the screen size. If I wanted more padding, I would scroll and say P8, and that adds more padding. That will again scroll as the screen size changes. And you can see that there are a ton of different classes here, and you can explore this at oxymade.com/cheat sheet. So this is the framework, and I'll show you how it works more when we get into the back end of the builder and using the framework in the builder. The other side of things is the blocks and design sets. So you get over 1,000 blocks with OxyMade. This isn't really something that we use as an agency because we build completely custom websites. But if you're missing the part of WordPress that was themes that Oxygen disables, and a lot of people use themes to get kind of a core design look and feel and pre-built pages already added to the website, and then they'll use a page builder like Elementor to change the various pages. Oxygen disables that. So if you're missing themes, these design sets are kind of as close as you're going to get to the themes. Then there are a ton of design sets, all focused on different things. So the mega design set is focused on kind of a modern look for a website. You have a WooCommerce-based theme. You have a blog-based theme. You have a restaurant-based theme. All of these themes then apply to the blocks within the design sets, and these blocks can be added directly into the Oxygen Builder using the standard design set system. Oxygen created a method to add design sets and blocks and elements into a website from a third-party provider like OxyMade for this exact situation. It's kind of a way to replace the need for themes. So you can see that there are a ton of different themes here. So let's just take a look at the Goodnight design set, which is a dark themed design set for dark scheme lovers. And if you go to the preview, if you go on their site and click preview on any of them, it'll kind of show you the different blocks that have been created with this tool. And you can see that everything's completely responsive. And in addition, this is all using Oxygen elements and the CSS framework, the OxyMade framework that's based on Tailwind, which is great because if you want to expand upon these design sets, you can simply add your own elements and add your own classes from that framework and duplicate the look and the feel of the website very easily. And you can see everything is really well designed and just kind of flows on the page nicely. So these are just the frameworks, and the frameworks are added again to Oxygen as any design set would be added. Now let's take a look at the OxyMade plugin, the backend, and the tools associated with it. So when you install OxyMade, you have to add your license and register your site on their dashboard. And then this is your core backend dashboard. And you can see that you have the framework, you can install it, you can install the various settings for Oxygen as well. You can set the base design set, which will apply styles to Oxygen buttons and stuff like that. Then you have a ton of different modules and power tools. So dark mode, changing classes to IDs, changing or merging classes in the editor, adding different grids, which are Oxygen elements that are CSS grids, which I'll show you in a second. Creating different typography, dark mode, a paste button, a bunch of different things. On the side, we have our color manager, which follows the color system that is kind of incorporated into the CSS framework. And this is something that's really helpful, really cool, and I'll show you more when we get to the back end. And then you just have a couple other things here. Purge unused classes is really cool. It will purge unused classes, which will speed up the performance on the front end of your website. It's experimental and might break things, so be careful when using it. So this is kind of what you get here. The magic, though, is in the back-end Oxygen builder. And I'm going to show you both the framework, which is what we use at the agency, alongside the design sets, which is something that I think a lot of other people will like using to get core structure and base pages down when they're building their site. All right, so here's the back-end builder, and you'll notice that these three buttons are kind of special here. We have hover effects, so we can just apply a hover effect to a specific element, and I'm going to just apply it here. So when I hover over it, it's applied my hover effect, and we have a ton of different hover effects here. We also have our colors, so I can take my primary colors, which are set in the back end. So this is my primary color, it's a blue. I can take that primary color and I can apply it directly to my text right here. And this is just copying and pasting for me. I can do the secondary color, a lot of different things here. That's my color system. And then I can also copy and paste different components from a builder outside of the site. And I'll show you that when we talk about the design sets. The thing that I really use this for is framework. So what I really like doing is creating custom websites, working with my developers, and just creating a really good looking custom website. And we use the framework here to be consistent through all of our pages because there are multiple developers working on the project, and to build a lot faster. So let's say I wanted to add padding to this div. If I wanted to add padding without the framework, I'd go to advanced, I'd go to size and spacing, and I'd add my padding for this breakpoint, and then I'd go down and add it for this, and this, and this. And it works, and it works well. I like Oxygen, but it's not very easy when you're building a lot, when you're doing a lot. So the solution here is to use this framework, which is a collection of a million different CSS classes. And once you understand how the framework works, it becomes a lot easier for you to understand how powerful it really is. So back to the padding example. Instead of going through all those steps, I can go here and say, oh, I want a little padding to be applied to this div right here. And right now it's just my normal div. It's wrapping the text element within it. And to add the padding, I'm just going to say P12. And this will add a big chunk of padding. And let's say I want to add a border. So I'll add my primary color as the border, and then I'll make it round. And you'll notice that we need to add one more border class. Okay. So let's say I want to add a padding to this div, which is just wrapping my text within. Instead of going and doing all of those steps, I can just say P12 maybe. And P12 will add a big chunk of padding on all different sides. And you'll notice that my hover effect is here because I applied it before. But the P12 will add this big chunk of padding. And then I can say, I want this width to be full. I want this to be 100% of the section. And that will make my width be 100% as opposed to having to go in and add the 100% into the size and spacing panel. And then let's say I want this to be flex center. And I can just say centered, and this will center the element within my padded 100% wide div. And then let's say I want the background of this to be the primary color, and I want this font color to be white. So I can say font. I can say color primary. My apologies. Or we can change it to whatever we want it to be, but I can change the colors here. And I can say I want this to be round. And as you can see, I'm really just, instead of building by clicking all these buttons and going into here and clicking all these buttons, I'm at least creating a core design set and ideology by using the given classes to me. And of course, this looks horrible, but it should give you a good example of what you can do when you understand how the framework works. You can just throw a bunch of classes onto elements rather than applying CSS styles to individual elements. And then when I want to add another section, and actually I'll show you right now the grid. OxyMade gives us grid elements that are pre-built. So say I want to go ahead and add another card that looks exactly like this. I can say I want this to be round, and I can copy the large round, and I can say I want the background to be the primary color, and then I can say I want my padding to be 12, which is the same padding as this. And by doing all of that, it simply just copies what I have here. And I have Hydrogen Pack installed, so I'm just copying and pasting. But even if you don't have Hydrogen Pack installed, it makes it very easy to replicate different things. And I can actually, with Hydrogen, copy the styles associated here and say I want that to be that size and apply different classes like so. So that's how we use the framework. We use the framework to create really consistent designs throughout our websites and really speed up how we create different tools. The good thing about the framework is that the actual classes associated here are really responsive to the size of the viewport. So this class, P12, actually uses the core Oxygen feature of sizing and spacing, and it adds these minimum and maximums. So this will collapse down based on the screen size into this. And say I want my padding to be less, and I actually just messed that up. Say I want my padding to be less. To do that, I would just go to here, I would remove the P12, and then I'd say, oh, I want it to be P4, so that's a little bit smaller. And I don't want it to be full width anymore, I just want it to be normal, but I want it to be centered in this background, in this section. And I want the section to actually not have a background color of alternate, I want it to be a background of red, which is my third color within the builder. So you can see that's how you would use kind of the framework. In addition, OxyMade adds all these different grids and helper elements so we can have a couple buttons show up that are already built and ready for us to go and stuff like that. So that's the framework, the power of the framework. I really like it. We use this in every single one of our projects. And once you understand and memorize the framework, your development becomes a lot faster. The second thing is the design sets. So the design sets, they're added using the normal Oxygen method of going into settings, adding the design set key, installing the design set, and then they show up like all the existing Oxygen design sets here. And right now I've added 2, but when you purchase this, you have access to all of the design sets. You can add and remove as many as you want. This is the most recent one, and you can see that once it loads all of its components, you have a ton of components to add to your website. And you can use this to create complete pages, but you can also use this to insert different blocks, build out structures, and change all the colors and font and stuff. There's really a very extendable idea here. So let's say I want to add this call to action. And actually first, let's just scroll through all of these. You can see that there are literally hundreds of different blocks and components and ideas. So I'm actually going to add this one. I really like this design. The cool thing about these blocks is that they're inserted directly into your website, and they're completely responsive, and they use the framework that I was just talking about. And because they use this framework, it's very nice because now I can change my colors in the OxyMade backend. Maybe I want this not to be blue anymore. I'm not going to have to go into every single individual component and change that color. It's global. It's completely global because it's using global variables. And you can see it collapses and all that. And I can really just add in this component here, and I can change this dummy text and change all this, save the page, and then on the front end, this design is here. So you can really build pages very quickly by using these design sets, and you can see and preview all the design sets before you even buy this tool. So this is something that I could really see people using to save them a ton of time. And you'll notice that also all the text here, it's completely responsive too. So this text actually gets smaller on mobile, and it gets larger on a larger screen size. And it uses Oxygen elements and just the OxyMade classes. So really, really cool. I think the pro here is that you just have so many different sets to use. It gets really easy to just throw a page together. I could probably build an entire website in an hour if I chose to. You can see all of this. And you just save it and it shows up on the front end of your website. If you don't want to do that, if you want to take another method when using these design sets, you can actually use, let me see if I can find it. You can use the page generator. And the page generator allows you to drag and drop sections onto, and I don't know if this is going to work because I didn't install this design set before, but you can drag and drop sections onto this kind of canvas, which is an app offered by OxyMade. And then you can preview it and see, oh, I want to see what my page looks like normally. And when you're ready to install it, you can simply click the copy button, go onto your Oxygen Builder canvas, which should be clear, and then install it like so. And this gives you a code, and it will automatically install it. And it's not going to work because I don't have that design set installed. But let's try another design set. This one will work because I did install it. And I'm just going to throw a bunch of things onto the page, copy it, and then add it to the builder. And I might need to reload the builder because I did not install the framework, but you can paste the page that you built outside of Oxygen into Oxygen, and that will kind of transform it into the Oxygen elements plus the design set pages. So let's just quickly remove this and then install that. And then I'll let this load. I'll come back to it in a few seconds. But there are two things that I really like about this tool. The first thing is the framework. The framework's awesome. It's completely standardized. It adds a ton of classes. It allows me to build, like I demonstrated, using classes instead of going into individual components and changing them, using standardized classes that are responsive and work throughout the entire website. I really use this to do flex layouts, CSS grids, padding, margins, font colors, background colors, all the colors. The colors are centrally located here, so if I change my primary color, any component that's using the primary color attribute on the framework is going to be changed. So I can completely, if I have a blue website, I can change my blue website to orange by just changing this color right here. So that's really cool. The framework is just, there's 600 plus classes. There's a cheat sheet. Once you memorize it, you build websites really fast. And you don't really need to worry about things being responsive because of the min-max and clamp features. The other thing is the design sets. I don't use them, but if you were to use them, I think that they replace the WordPress theme feature. And I think that they also are really helpful when you're trying to build out a lower cost website that doesn't need to be completely custom, and or if you're working on your own website and you're missing the functionality of themes and just want a website that looks good, is responsive, you don't have to worry about it, this is kind of the route to go. The cost of this tool is two-pronged. If you want to only buy the framework, that's $149, and the framework also includes the mega set, which you can preview on the site. If you want to purchase everything, that's $229. And they're installment plans, so you don't have to just throw $229 here. There's a 14-day money-back guarantee, and there's a very, 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 very good support system here too. The developer is really responsive, listens to customer feedback, and is just very helpful and has helped us a lot over the past few months of us using this in production client websites. I don't think this is going to load, but it typically does load. We typically add, if we were to add design sets, we'll add them by using the standard insert feature, which I showed you here. But I'm going to just wrap this review up by saying we use this in our production websites. The framework itself is well worth the price of, I believe it to be $149. If you are missing out on themes, if you really want themes but you love Oxygen, go and get the unlimited everything. It'll give you all the sets associated with it. And depending on how you build websites for yourself or your client, using the sets here could save you a ton of time. For us, the framework just is incredibly time-saving and makes us more effective and efficient, especially when there are multiple developers trying to keep everything looking the same. Just use the framework rather than trying to figure out your own defined framework. It's just super helpful, super beneficial, actively updated, very well supported, and that's really that. If you want to go check it out, there's a link in the description below. Hope this video is helpful. If you found it helpful, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Until the next video, I won't see you in the next video. I will.